I can record.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Adoption Happy Hour, brought to you by NAAP. We are the National Association of Adoptees and Parents, where it is our mission to unify the adoption community and elevate our diverse voices by promoting dialogue, understanding, and healing through education, awareness, and connections. I'm Marcie Keithley, Board President, and your host for this evening, along with Beth Syverson, Executive Board Member helping out in the Zoom room. So we're just honored that so many of you have decided to join us this evening. If you haven't already, please feel free to jump in the chat room, introduce yourself, where you're from, and how you identify. Before we get started, we are going to do a couple of little housekeeping items. Beth's going to help us with that. We want to remind everyone that this is a public meeting with no guarantee that information or identity is confidential. Portions of this event are recorded and may be shared in our private happy hour group on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. If you're not following us on Facebook, please go under Adoption Happy Hour and do so, because that's where this recorded replay will be. Please remain on mute, raise your hand on screen or the virtual hand to be recognized. Again, you're welcome to post comments and chat. If you are experiencing a serious mental health event or suicidal thought, please contact a licensed professional or the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by dialing 988. Give Beth a little time here. Okay, you want me to take this, Beth?
If you want. I don't know if you know all the stuff I have, but go ahead.
That's what I'm thinking. You might as well go ahead.
Okay, I think I have the right number, 41 days. We are counting down the days until Summit begins. And we have 60 plus speakers and panelists, but we also have two incredible nights of entertainment. Thursday night will be Corey Goodrich with her original folk song presentation that will be live, and it will tell her story. And Friday night we have Brian Stanton's At Ghost Kingdom. And I have not seen Corey, I have seen Brian, but I'm excited about both of those. Love to see Brian again. Okay, this is what the ticket situation is now, from now until March 20th, $319 for an entire conference ticket. After the 20th to the 29th, $399. Significant other tickets, it's a one-day ticket for $139, and that is a Friday ticket. Originally we were not doing one-day tickets because we didn't think we would have enough room, but we decided we do have enough room that we are going to offer one-day tickets. And so Friday is $169, Saturday $150. And when we are not recording, I will be dropping all sorts of links in to help you find these things. You can give a gift certificate. Someone, maybe as a surprise, someone would like to go and can't afford it, whatever, you can give a gift certificate. That link will be in the chat. And then we contact that person and help them figure out what parts they want to attend, which workshops and everything. We'll be at the Marriott East in Louisville, and we continue to add rooms as long as they will let us. And so if the rooms do run out, we want you to know that within 3 minutes, there are other hotels. So please don't not come if you can't get a room there, because you can stay very close. We also have a private group on Facebook that you can connect with other people who might be looking for a roommate. So we're trying to help you as much as we can to be able to attend. I think that's all of those. So as far as our programming goes, Dr. Joyce will be up on the 21st, right, Marcie?
Correct.
Dr. Joyce is coming up this next week with her Putting Yourself Together After Reunion. Some of the best discussions you will ever hear about the realities of reunion take place during this hour. It's really incredible. So you will want to get in on that if you can. Okay. The fourth Thursday of the month, we have Danielle Gaudette with Self-Love Essentials for the Adoption Constellation. People are really enjoying her program every month, so you will want to get in on that if you haven't yet.
And if I could jump in, Beth, you'll be
Yes.
able to meet Danielle. She's coming to Summit.
Yep.
So
That will be great. Not very many of us have met her in person, so we are looking forward to that. Okay, new share. I have one more.
we just might add that Danielle found out she's an adoptee, and she found out that her mother was a famous actress. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yep, she has quite a story.
That is a story. Yeah.
And then we have Amber Jimerson, who leads our First Families Birth Parents Journeying Together support group. Amber will be at the conference as well. So
Yes.
this might be somebody you've never had the opportunity to meet. Her group meets on the second Thursday, excuse me. Yes, second Thursday of each month. I think that's it.
Okay. And I just wanted to add, especially since we have some new faces, happy hour is the first and the third Friday of each month. Every now and then we will have something special. But what we wanted to do is this year we changed things up. We have been here every Friday night for the last several years, but we have something going on each week at NAAP. So there's either a support group, there's a happy hour, something's going on every week. So please follow us on social media, and on Friday nights on happy hour, we'll keep you posted of these events. But check us out and join some of these groups. We'd love to see you there. So, okay, announcements, housekeeping, everything's out of the way. Yay, it's time to meet our guest. And I would like to introduce Beth Syverson and welcome her to Adoption Happy Hour. So welcome, Beth.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marcie and Beth, for inviting me in, for facilitating this awesome evening. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And what I'd like to do is just share with our attendees a little bit about you, and then we'll just start. Beth is an adoptive mother who has a 19-year-old son who has been struggling with addiction and mental health issues for several years. She struggles with addiction as well, though not with the same substances as her son. This experience has given her empathy for her son's struggles. She is walking beside her son in his recovery while she works on her own personal growth and healing. Joy and Beth started Safe Home Podcast in August of 2021 in order to help other families avoid the pain that they have endured. 6 weeks after this started, her son did relapse, but he gave Beth his blessing to continue this important work, even suggesting an episode about relapse. So now the new podcast has been named Unraveling Adoption. And she is continuing to work, focusing on supporting adoptive parents. Last fall, she started APtitude, a support group for adoptive parents facing adoptions challenges. Beth is committed to destigmatizing addiction and mental illness, and she wants to help other families touched by adoption to find their own healing path. So we want to welcome Beth for joining us this evening, and we know that we appreciate the work that you're doing here and your journey as far as learning. There's no better way, I feel, to help you on your own personal journey than to hear the voices of adult adoptees. They are the experts. So we appreciate you coming this evening and sharing your journey with your son's permission. And let's just dive in and hear all about your journey and where you are today. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Go right ahead.
Thank you so much. And by the way, I will be in Louisville, so I'm excited to meet whoever's also going. I'm very excited to be there. This will be my first time doing anything like that. So, all right. I never dreamed I would be doing this. I'm a musician. I've been a musician since I was 3. I teach music. It was always music was my whole life. And then I will be telling you the story of our son and our family, and it has shifted my whole trajectory. It seems I am just so committed to helping other families affected by adoption, and particularly helping other adoptive parents avoid some of the mistakes that I made. So I'm going to share our story today. And as Marcie said, our son has given us explicit permission to share any part of his story. I just talked to him yesterday, in fact, and I said, okay, I'm going to be talking for a long time. And is there anything you want me not to say? Or are you still fine? I check in with him every couple of weeks. And he says, yeah, mom, go, do it. He says, our pain has to get transformed and help other people. So that I wanted to make sure you all knew, because I don't want anyone to think that I'm sharing without his permission. And I also wanted to let you know that I just want to share our story. It's just one person's story, one family's story. And I'm no expert. I don't have any letters behind my name or anything, but just, we hope Joey and me and my wife, Jan, who's here, hi, Jan, are just, our goal is to help one person every time we, speak or have a podcast episode or whatever. So if this touches one person and helps one person or one family just be a little bit more helpful for their adoptee in their life, we will have done our job for the day. So thank you for letting me be here, and very honored to be here. Okay, so I struggled with infertility for a couple of years, and it was really, it was a really rough time. The hormones and just, it's really brutal. And the infertility industry is not a healthy industry. It is, they just want you to keep cranking around, keep doing it. And so I did until I just couldn't anymore. And I said, I can't do this anymore. So we turned to adoption. I was really terrified of domestic adoption because I knew that sometimes in the US that birth families change their minds. And I did not want that to happen. And as you can kind of tell from this story so far, I did not go into this thinking, all I want to do is help a child. No, I went into it thinking, I want to build my family. And now looking back, I realized how, unempathetic that was, or I wasn't thinking about the ramifications on our son. But anyway, I was definitely just wanting to create a family. And my ex-husband, my husband at the time, of course, is Japanese American. And so we had heard that you can adopt from Japan as long as one of you is Japanese. Well, he's third generation Japanese American, and he was extremely assimilated and didn't do anything culturally Japanese, but they didn't care. So he had a Japanese name, looked Japanese. So they said, okay, sure, you guys are good to go. And it didn't take long, maybe 3 months or 4 months. It was very quick as far as adoptions go, as I understand. So, and I did not deal with my infertility. I did not deal with my grief over that loss at all. I just like, I'm turning the corner. I'm doing this other thing. It'll be fine. We'll just do it this way. Everything will just be the same. I was very naive, and no one, not the infertility clinic, not the agency that we used in Japan, no one told me, you better get some therapy for that grief that you've got there. I don't think I even realized there would have been grief, but of course there is. And now I'm dealing with it 20 years later. So we went to Japan and picked up our beautiful son, Joey. We named him Joey, and he was a bright, bright light. He still is. But when he was a baby, he never cried. He was super smiley and just engaging. Strangers would just be attracted to him. And now I thought it was my good parenting. But now I realize my son, even, I forgot to tell you, we adopted him at 7.5 months old. Even at that young age, he had learned to just not cry. He knew his cries wouldn't be answered anyway, so he just quit crying. He was smiley and friendly and happy because he didn't want to be given away again. Even at that very young age, he was very compliant, and he just went along with whatever we did. And so I thought, wow, we are so lucky. He's such a good baby. But I think every baby's good, right? There's no good or bad babies. And it was his dissociation was present really from early ages, but I didn't realize it at the time. So Joey was an amazing little kid. He was extremely athletic. He played t-ball, but he like literally could play the game and not just, you know, spin around and pull the grass. You know, he was a superstar baseball player. He's also a really good musician and just really talented, delightful. He was an only child, so he's really great talking to grown-ups, and he was just an amazing kid. I ended up divorcing his dad when Joey was 4, and it was a really tough time for me because I knew that, you know, Joey's birth parents were not kind of betting on his adoptive parents getting divorced. I mean, that's not ideal, right? And I went back and forth, and it was so horrible being with that man, and you'll discover why in a little bit. But it was either Joey would get a divorced mom or a dead mom. It was not that I would have gotten murdered, but that I probably would have killed myself if it had gone on much longer. I was just dead inside. So I was like, Joey deserves a mom that's healthier and that can cope with whatever we've got to go on. So anyway, that also traumatized my son. You know, divorce at any age is no good, but divorce for an adoptee is really bad. And at 4, he really started acting out at that age. And there was a couple of years there that was really rough. It didn't help that every single day his dad told him that your mom left us and she doesn't love us anymore. Your mom abandoned us. And I didn't know it at the time. I might have known a little bit of it at the time, but later on he told me more. He used to play Leaving on a Jet Plane for him every night. And it's so frustrating because that man is just impossible to convince that those things would be harmful to his child. He just was very, very angry at me. So he took it out on Joey, and it's terrible, terrible, terrible. So I feel really terrible about that I brought Joey into a family that ended up being so dysfunctional. But I deal with that every day, but I try not to just live in that guilt and shame, because it doesn't help anybody, especially not me, and it doesn't help Joey. But what I try to do is turn it around and help other people. So that's why I'm doing this. And okay, so anyway, divorced. A couple of years later, I found my wife, and I realized that I was lesbian, and we eventually got married when they finally said we could. We were actually the first people in Orange County, California, to get married on the exact day that the Supreme Court said we could. It was a very exciting time. Our son was about 10 at the time, and he was our best man, and he and Jan get along great, and we just made a really great family, the 3 of us, me and Jan and Joey. And yeah, so things were really smooth. I did not realize they were smooth from my perspective. I should say they were smooth from my perspective through elementary school, early junior high. But oh, did someone have a question? Or is that just a interference? I don't think so.
And you know, there's
try that. Okay, so I thought things were going smoothly. We ran him to baseball, we ran to music lessons, we ran him here and there, we had fun. Jan taught him how to change brakes and put in outlets and all sorts of fun things like that. And we thought things were going well, but I did not realize that our son was getting bullied every single day at his very white school in Huntington Beach, California, for being Asian. I had no idea you could get bullied for being Asian, but that is a seriously true thing, especially the last couple of years after COVID. And he also got bullied for having 2 moms. So I also thought that generation would be like, wouldn't think twice about the 2 moms thing, but in his neighborhood, it's a very bigoted, conservative, closed-minded area, and my son got bullied every single day of his life, and he didn't tell us. And I should have known. I should have known, being one of a few people of color in an all-white school, or almost all-white school, I should have known that that would have caused him problems. I should have known that having two moms would cause problems, even with this new generation. But I just like, la, 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 we love him. He's so delightful with us. When we were together, he was delightful. Like I said, he was masking and trying to be really good so he didn't get given away again, right? So a lot of regrets that I have about, things I didn't do, mostly errors of omission. But I didn't know any of that stuff until he was 15. And just trigger warning, I will be talking about suicidality for, it'll pop up the rest of my story. So if that's a big trigger for anyone, that's coming up. At age 15, I was out in the backyard one morning and his dad called and said, Beth, Joey's okay, but he tried to kill himself last night and you need to come down and get him. So that was a really terrible day. It was almost exactly 4 years ago today. It was 4 years ago on February 7th. And my whole world crumbled that day. This building that we thought we had constructed of love and fun times and vacations and helping each other, it just fell apart. My son tried to kill himself. Holy cow. And so we put him, we got him help. We got him into a psych hospital that night. And that was a whole thing unto itself. We had no idea now I know what things are like in psych hospitals. Back then, we had no idea how things operated. I never knew anyone that tried to kill themselves, or it was just, I felt completely lost and I was just super distraught. The next day, I heard from the psychiatrist that met with Joey, and he said Joey's in a very, very dark place. He's having a lot of trouble wanting to be alive, and that lasted for, well, a long time, but in a crisis situation for about a week. But they also found a whole bunch of substances in his blood or urine or whatever it was. So they found cannabis and they found psychedelics, and or Joey told them about the psychedelics because some psychedelics don't show up. But anyway, wow, that was a big day. I had no idea he was using anything. I thought our kid was squeaky clean because I thought being in baseball protected him. He was a serious baseball player. He wanted to be a Dodger. He wanted to be a professional player. I thought he would never jeopardize his baseball career because there was supposedly a zero tolerance policy on the baseball team. Well, guess who introduced him to drugs? Baseball kids in the bus. They smoked in the bus. They smoked on the field in practices. I was like, what? I could not believe it. And he had been probably smoking, vaping, and using other stuff for, we think, at least a year, maybe 2 years. And we didn't know it. But his dad knew it. His dad was buying the cannabis for him and maybe some other stuff too. So we found that out that same couple of days. And, we were so angry at his dad for not telling us that Joey was using cannabis, or for sneaking around and getting him cannabis. He says, oh, he had trouble sleeping, so I wanted to help him sleep. Oh my God. Oh Lordy, it was really a terrible couple of days there. So just so many things waking up all at once. And I remember making a choice because I knew all of this was supposedly shameful. In our culture, you don't talk about suicide, you don't talk about drugs, you don't talk about adoption, you don't talk about any of it. But I was like, I cannot do this. I cannot do this alone. So I asked Joey when he was somewhat coherent, and we only had a few minutes of visiting a day, but I asked him if it would be okay if I set up a caring bridge. I don't know if y'all know Caring Bridge. It's like a blog for people that are in the hospital or having whatever medical issues. And it's like a private blog, so you can just say your stuff once and email it to everybody. And it's a really handy thing, Caring Bridge. So I started Caring Bridge, and I was like, there is nothing shameful about this. If my son had cancer, if he had, anything else, I wouldn't be sneaking around. So I'm not going to sneak around. So we just told our private blog group on Caring Bridge all the stuff that was happening, and they came through for us in a big, big way because we were open. They knew what was going on, and they knew I would ask them what we needed, and I'd ask Joey what he would like, and he says, Mom, I need beautiful pictures, because he was in a psych ward. I don't know if any of you have ever been in a psych ward. It's a windowless concrete construction with, even when we went to visit him, the tables have no table legs. They have these platform tables, so you don't rip off the leg and start, or you can't pick up the furniture. Everything's nailed down. It's not a very healing place to be. So he asked for beautiful pictures of nature and poems, and our friends and family just came through for us. And I am so grateful for all of them. And they have stuck with us through all of this. And I think a big piece of it was our choice to not hide, and just to say, this is happening. And I got more amped up when I realized how much drugs is in my son's school. Like, oh my gosh, other parents need to know how easy it is. My kid, the first time he used cannabis was in science class. They can use these vape pens so nonchalantly, and they can hide it, and it doesn't have smoke. They just blow the vapor down their shirt. And it is extremely prevalent out here in California anyway. And I understand that it's extremely prevalent everywhere, even places where it's illegal. It's now legal in California, but not for kids. But it's very, very easy for them to get it. They even deliver it to you here in California. They have delivery services, and they've got some minimum wage driver driving this cannabis around, and they don't care who they hand it to, So Joey tricked them a couple of times, and he just found ways to get whatever drugs he needed. By the way, whenever I speak, I like to let people know that you can vape cannabis. It's very common, and you can vape psychedelics. Raise your hand if you knew you could vape psychedelics. I think most people have no idea that you can do that. There's a psychedelic, most psychedelics can't withstand the vapor, but there's one called DMT, which is extremely strong. Instead of like LSD, you're like gone for a whole day, like a whole journey. DMT, you go up and down in about 20 minutes. And the kids love this. And it's relatively inexpensive, and you can vape it. So I just try to educate other parents and other teachers and adults, community members out there, to understand what is going on with our kids. And this vaping is extremely dangerous, not to mention the nicotine addiction, which he's still struggling with. And also the other thing my son got into with substances was cough medicine. Raise your hand if you knew about cough medicine as a drug that kids use. A couple of you, good. Not good, that I'm sorry that you know that, but I'm glad you know it. Yeah, so my son overdosed several times on Coricidin. He took a whole box, I think it was 36 at a time, and he could have died pretty easily with that, but he was just like out for about a day, completely almost comatose. And he took a whole box of Benadryl, and it's extremely dangerous. And the kids steal that very, very easily it's at the 99-cent store. Sometimes you can buy it. Kids have that much money, but they just steal it very easily. So really dangerous stuff. So Joey and I decided we need to help other people to help their kids not get involved in this stuff, and help parents be more educated. So I was so clueless. And I remember at his high school, they had, or maybe it was the district, had parents come learn about vaping. And I said, I don't need to go to that. Why would I need to go to that? So I tell parents, you need to go to that. Go to all of those. Just go to them all. It's all good. You need to learn it. You don't think it's going to be your kid, but it might be your kid. And then you're going to have to deal with it. So if we had figured this out sooner, it might have been better for him. But by the time he was trying to unalive himself at 15, he was deep into all of it. He also binge drank. He drank a whole handle of vodka one night, hoping not to wake up. And it was pretty bad there for a while. The way I handled things after that was not pretty. it was not good. Marcie alluded in the intro that I was also addicted to things. My addictions are working and sugar, although I've been off of sugar for 6 years, 7 years, almost 7 years. So I was able to recover from sugar, but it is something I work on every single day. I have to plan my food. There's a bunch of stuff I do so I don't go back to sugar because it's so debilitating to me. So I understand addiction at a deep level. And I also understand the addiction I'm currently continuing to fight, this workaholism, which is a really good way to numb out, just as good as cannabis, really. You just work yourself to death. So you're always tired and you're always doing something so you don't have to think about all the scary stuff that you're dealing with. So I really understand addiction, and I believe addiction is addiction, that my workaholism is no better or worse than my son's cannabis addiction or LSD addiction or whatever he's using. It's a different substance, a different behavior, but it's trying to do the same thing. It's trying to numb you out. It's trying to avoid pain. There's always a reason people are using whatever, trying to get to the bottom of an ice cream canister as fast as you can. Why? Figure that out. What is behind it? What's behind that behavior? So I was very grateful that my sugar addiction and recovery came before all of this, because if it hadn't, I might not have really understood the cravings and the inability to stop. And it's not just a choice. He's not choosing to stay in addiction and stay in chaos. It is a major issue of trying to deal with this pain. And now that I know what I know, I realize a lot of his pain is adoption trauma, plus the divorce, plus having a crazy ass dad that is not good for him. So all of that combined, yeah. Do you think my kid would want to numb out? Of course he would, getting bullied every single day at school. And so I have and had a lot of empathy for him. The empathy didn't make it super easy at all. It was still extremely scary and difficult to deal with the chaos that drug addiction brings to a family. But I started telling you about the workaholism because I turned into super mom at this point, shortly after Joey's crisis. I looked up every single alternative way of healing. I found every single psychiatrist, therapist, treatment center, every possible thing, addiction, teen things that you can find. I found them all. I even found him a psychedelic integration group. If any of you are into psychedelics, which is kind of becoming a big thing in a reputable way. My son, we used it in a not safe way, but there are people using psychedelics in safer ways and using them therapeutically. So there's these groups called integration circles. And so I brought my 16-year-old son to this psychedelic integration circle. I went with him the first time because I was like, holy cow, are you guys gonna use psychedelics here? Are you gonna sell it to each other? What is gonna happen? But it was totally up and up, and it was amazing people there that helped us and helped him, and we're still in touch with some of them and very grateful. So I was so willing to work outside the box. I wanted to figure out how to help my son. I literally thought it was my mission to fix him. And it took me a while, and a life coach later on. It took us, I spent about a year just chasing him around, running him to one place and then running him to here, there, all over the place. And the poor thing, I'm sure he felt like a project to be fixed. And that, I'm sure, felt really horrible. And I feel bad about that. But it was that's all I knew. You know what you know, that's what you know. So I was like, I know how to work. I know how to make charts. I know how to contact people. I know how to work the medical system. And so I did, and I was very assertive and got him all the help that I could find, but none of it really helped. A little bit helped, but most of it was just not helpful at all. So I got really depressed. It was very anxiety provoking. I'm like, I'm running, I'm trying. And nothing was working. My son was still in extreme amounts of pain and chaos. and the addiction just ramped up. And I finally found a life coach who helped me greatly. Her name is Heather Ross. If anyone's interested, I will get you in touch with her. Her specialty is helping parents of teens that are struggling with addiction. And she helped my wife, Jan, and me so much. And she taught me that I needed to focus on myself and take the spotlight off of Joey. It's not my job to fix him. There's nothing to fix. He's not broken. He's on his journey of trying to figure out how to manage his pain. And I'm on my own journey, and I can walk beside him and help him as much as I can, but there's only so much I can do at this point. He's almost an adult. So I did that. Jan and I both did that. And we turned the spotlight onto ourselves, worked on our marriage, got ourselves hobbies. I ended up going to play taiko drumming. Taiko's the Japanese drums, where you whack on those drums. It is still my best therapy. I also do lots of regular therapy too, but this is extremely therapeutic. I go bang on those drums every week, and it connects me a little bit to his Japanese heritage too. I thought he might want to come do it with me, but as soon as I did it, then it became a mom thing, and then not cool for a teenager. So darn, but maybe someday he'll do it with me. So that helped tremendously, getting the life coaching, turn the spotlight away from him and onto ourselves, realizing how little control I had over anything. It's just an illusion that any parent has control, really, especially, as a teen, an older teen. There's very little that I can push him to do. And then he turned 18 and there's nothing I can push him to do. Like literally, if your child is over 18 and they talk to you, they don't have to. They don't have to do anything with you anymore. So if you have an adult child who's talking to you, you're doing something right. So that's good. So our life coach helped us so much. And then, I got into therapy. I've done EMDR. I've done all sorts of alternative treatments. I've done brain spotting. I've done breath work. A lot of these I did to try it out, to see if Joey would like to do it and to make sure it's not some cuckoo crazy something that will hurt anybody. But a lot of it was really effective. I especially highly recommend EMDR, but all of it moved me along one way or another. Have any of you heard of breath work, holotropic breath work? A few of you. So breath work, it takes you almost the same place as psychedelics do, but all you use is your breath, and you can pop out of it at any moment. You just stop breathing quickly. It's like a little bit of a hyperventilation almost, and strong music, binaural beats in your ears, and it kind of takes you on a journey. It was fabulous. I highly recommend it. But on one of these journeys, I clearly saw myself kind of floating like Superman over the top of this dark, dark forest. And then Joey came and met me up in the sky, and I got a clear message from him. He said, "Mom, I want you to quit chasing me. I want you to just follow me. I don't want you to chase me anymore. Quit running after me. I just want you to follow me." So it's taken me a long time to really understand what that means, but I understood that as a really strong message from whatever is up there. I don't know, from Joey, I guess, that chasing him around is not helping things. It's making things worse. He even said that once, and I got really mad. He said, "Mom, you need to stop. This is making me want to use drugs worse." And I got really upset because I thought, it's not my fault you're using drugs. But you know what? And it's not my fault. It's nobody's fault, but I was not helping. I was driving him to want to use drugs more because I was shaming him. I was making him a project. I was making him feel like there was something wrong with him. And so, yeah, he wanted to use more drugs because I was kind of making him crazy. So I backed off quite a bit and took care of myself, got myself more centered, found practices that grounded me. And I eventually learned how to co-regulate with Joey. I do breathing with him. And if he's extremely anxious or suicidal or whatever, I've learned to keep my body calm as possible. And this was over the course of many times. He's been suicidal over a dozen times. He's been hospitalized, I don't know, 6 or 8 times, many of those in COVID where I couldn't even visit him. And there have been times where he's been suicidal and I've been able to go be with him and cool him down. And so we don't have to go to the hospital. So that's ideal, because the hospital really doesn't help either. They've been not helpful. A lot of them made things worse there too. So we're very frustrated with our mental health system around here. No one in our mental health system, except for one guy that we pay cash to, that's way off the beaten path, but no one in our formal mental health system has ever discussed his trauma, either the divorce or his adoption. They've never given him any sort of intensive therapy to help him with his suicidality, his addictions. It's all been worksheets and group discussions and worksheets and group discussions and AA meetings. And all of those have helped. All of those have helped a little, a lot, it's, and then you just build up your resources, right? You build up your toolbox. They've all helped, but not one of them has said, I wonder if there's some trauma under there that might be causing you to want to grab all these substances. Oh, you're adopted. Oh, I wonder if that has anything to do with it. And in fact, not only have they not asked him or talked about that, I asked a psychiatrist at one point. I said, can you please help him with his attachment issues? He's adopted, and I think that might be behind a lot of his behavior and his self-destructiveness. And she said, oh, if he was a baby, he doesn't remember. And I was like, and at that point I had read The Primal Wound, I had read The Body Keeps a Score, and I was like, are you kidding me? You're a psychiatrist? So this is who we have taking care of our kids, you guys. It was brutal. And it's been really, really terrible. We had another man, he actually really would have liked to work with Joey's attachment issues, and he kind of understood what I was talking about, but he said, I can't, because I'm only going to have a month or 6 weeks with this kid before the insurance pulls the plug on this. And it's not enough time to help him. It'll just kind of open it up and then they'll take him away again. So it's a giant systemic issue. And I'm sure no one there was on purpose trying to hurt my child or trying not to help him, but no one was helping him. And we did get him an adoption therapist for a little bit, and then COVID happened and that kind of shut down. He went to a couple of groups with some other teens. He did find some of that. But there have been times though where his addiction has been so difficult that kind of needed to become priority. And there are some other times where his suicidality became so problematic that it's like, okay, priorities, let's keep you alive. Let's keep you as safe as possible. Our family believes in harm reduction. So we talk about how can you use cannabis without going into psychosis, because he's experienced psychosis about 6 times, and that's really scary. I don't know if y'all know that you can go into psychosis with cannabis. The kids are using, not just kids, but people are using, but especially the kids are using very high concentrated versions of cannabis. Joey uses tinctures and oils that are like 95% THC. So, and he uses them in very high quantities, and he goes into psychosis. So he is still to this day struggling with cannabis and nicotine. I think nicotine is going to be a long-term situation, but the cannabis, he and I have discussed, just for an example of harm reduction, if you're not familiar with harm reduction, we discussed the fact that he might not always be able to stay away from cannabis. He goes in and out, and he's actually on day 3 of being off of it. So I'm so excited about that and happy for him. But when he's on it, he's agreed to himself and to me that he won't use over X amount of grams at a time. And he's not going to use those, he's not going to dab anymore, which is a pretty dangerous way of using really high concentrates. So he's figured out how much he can use without going into psychosis, which is the big the big goal for that. You know, we want him to not completely lose his mind. We want him not to die from suicidality or from, you know, an accidental overdose. Fentanyl is all over the place. You can get fentanyl in all sorts of things that you don't think it'll be in. So we've gotten him Narcan. We have gotten him fentanyl test strips, and just try to make sure he stays safe. And he knows that we just want him to stay alive long enough to figure out how to heal his pain, you know, how to get on his healing path. So I hope all that makes sense. He is just so brilliant. The last 4 years have been so tough for all of us, but he is amazing. I'm so proud of him. Every single day he fights for his life. Every single day he's suicidal. He's usually at about a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10 of a suicidality scale. I ask him, what's your SI today? Your suicidal ideation scale. What's your SI? And it's a scale of 1 to 10. And usually he'll say, oh, 2 or 3, which is his baseline. That's just normal for him to be a 2 or 3. And then a 10 is like, take you to the ER time. But, you know, occasionally it'll ramp up to 6s and 7s and 8s and 10s. And then we march into action. But so he struggles with suicidality every day. He's struggling with this cannabis and the nicotine and the other substances that he's so drawn to. He's still drawn to psychedelics. I don't know if he's been using them lately. I'm never exactly sure if what he's telling me is exactly the whole truth, because addiction does that sometimes, and you don't want to disappoint people. But when he uses psychedelics, he's had some really amazing times. He's met his birth mother when he's been on psychedelics. He's gotten these huge hugs from the universe, and there's been some really positive things he's had from psychedelics, as well as some really horribly bad trips that have scared him badly. So, but to me, I understand why he struggles, and I understand the addictive nature of all these substances he's using. So I'm proud of him for keeping on trying. He occasionally will relapse or lapse, and then he bounces right back out and goes, oh yeah, I remember why I don't do that now. That kind of destroys my life. I'm not going to do that again. So then he bounces out again. And every time he dips back in, it's a little shorter. We've been noticing, and not quite as deep into it. So this last time was only like a week and a half. It's terrifying, though, in that week and a half, that you don't know how low they're going to go. You know, you don't know what he's going to grab. You know, maybe he's going to start grabbing harder drugs. I don't know. And I have no control over it. Whew. So I really think in a previous life, or maybe several lives, I've had trouble with control, because the universe handed me, you know, a really tough one this time around. I cannot control another human being. All I can do, and my life coach taught me this, as well as there are 2 other modalities that I love for addiction, and it actually works for mental health or just for relationships in general. One is called CRAFT, Community Reinforcement and Family Training is what the acronym stands for. And the other is called Invitation to Change, or ITC. Both of those are really good, and they help me understand that my job is to provide positive, unconditional love and behavior toward my son. That's all. And when he asks for help, I can give him whatever help that I am able to. I wish I could give him effective therapy or effective mental health care. It's hard to find, but I provide the things that we can provide, and I provide him unconditional positive regard. So when he calls and says, Mom, I'm using again, I'm really disappointed in myself, I say, thank you for telling me. I know that took a lot of guts to tell me. I'm really grateful. What can I do? Are you staying safe? Is there anything you need? And so I've learned to take that breath, take that moment to take that in, and not flip out with whatever, you know, bad news he's trying to let me know. So my goal is to stay connected with this beautiful young man So he knows that he has a safe place to come to when he's ready to get help. And he knows I'm totally on his side whenever he's ready to search for his birth family or ready to move forward with adoption therapy or whatever, that we're here for him. My wife Jan is on the same page with me on this too. So I think, as Marcie said, Joey and I started Safe Home Podcast in August of 2021. It was Joey's idea. He said, Mom, we got to help other families. I think we should do a podcast. And I said, I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts all the time. And so we did. And like she mentioned at the beginning, he relapsed 6 weeks in. And I'm like, what do you want to do now? Do you want me to keep going or do you want me to wait? And he said, Mom, I want you to keep going. And I want you to talk about relapse. And I want you to talk about all these topics and bring in guests and just keep it going. So we have, and we have talked about relapse. We even had one episode talking with him while he was in active use and what that feels like to be in relapse. And we have an episode with him and my life coach talking about how it felt to be on the other end of this craft's invitation to change business. And then I recently changed the podcast to Unraveling Adoption because I'm so passionate about helping adoptive families. So of course, because adoption, we continue to talk about addiction and mental health and trauma and those things. But adoption now is kind of the umbrella, and everything we do is kind of tied into adoption somehow. And like I said, my son is still very much on board and wanting to get his story, our story out to help other people. And I am very grateful for this opportunity to just talk and talk and talk about our story. I hope it's helped somebody, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Our lives are open books, and we're happy to answer whatever questions anybody has.
Thank you, Beth. And I really appreciate you sharing your story with us this evening of your journey with your son. And I would like to start out by saying, you know, at NAAP, again, we are the National Association of Adoptees and Parents. We have very few adoptive parents on here, but one of the most important things is we're here for education. We're here for awareness. And as I said at the beginning, the experts are right here. And I don't know about, and I know my audience pretty well, and I know that there's lots of questions and there's lots of comments, and there's a lot of people that want to support you and your son in this journey. I know these, I just know this. And I sat here and took a ton of notes, and I'm sure several of you did the same thing. And the one thing that struck out, and I think Linda's already touched on it, is the lack of, in the medical profession, the mental health profession, of adoption competent therapists, of trauma-informed therapists, and even getting in to see those. The lack of a family that's adopting a child and what resources and information they're given when they bring a child into their home. And what we can do as the adult adoptee community to support that and help that. So I'm just going to leave it there because I don't want to take the whole evening. I know there's plenty of questions out there. Linda, did you want to start it off? Linda Hollett. It was you, wasn't it?
Marcie, are we going to stop first the recording?
Yeah, we need to stop that.